podcast. I am Dr. Sam, as always, with me, my fearless partner, Dr. Robert. How are you?
I like that. Fearless partner. That's not a bad intro. I gotta that's how I feel. Let's do this.
Exactly.
Um Weekly podcast. How you doing, Sam?
I'm great. I'm doing really good. Today's my day off, so I feel like I'm like, okay, now what are the things I have to do that I never got to do the other days? So I have like
How
a
do I
minute,
catch up in life? I feel like that's a big thing. It's like when you have a day off, you're like, it's not relaxation, it's what do I need to catch up on in the other areas of my life to be
It's
like
100%
functional.
true. Yeah, exactly. Because the way like our other days are is like it's like triage. It's like these are the holes I have to plug to like get this day done, and then it's like okay, so here's my day to catch up on all the things that I
Yes.
didn't do in my regular life.
It's very much how I feel. It's great. So that I yeah, I need a day off soon. But next week will be good before the holidays. Do you have any fun upcoming holidays? Holiday plans?
Yeah, I love Christmas, so our house is already decked out in Christmas. Like the second I'm allowed to deck my house out in like every corner, definitely looks like Christmas vomited in that corner, which is fine. That's like my happy place. And then our outside is like not quite Griswold family Christmas because I didn't get up on the roof, but any place that's like low enough for me to just string some lights on, there are some lights on it. So, and I'm
I
the
get
one that does it. Like it's not even like Paul having a bum knee. It's never been him. It's always me that does it. So,
it's never been.
so yeah. So that that nothing changed this year. And actually we had a few days that were like 50 degrees. So it was like
Oh,
I
nice.
wasn't absolutely frozen while I was doing it, which is also rare in the Midwest. Like usually I'm like, I just have one more thing to put up. So this time it was actually rather comfortable putting it up.
That's nice, actually. I kind of miss like there's some people have like Christmas lights here, and it still hasn't just clicked for me.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a palm tree with Christmas lights on it. I'm sorry, it's
It's
not the
not the
same.
same.
It
Yeah.
really isn't.
When I lived in LA, there was this one street that's when we would be walking just like our dog or and there was this like one street that had this very sort of like East Coast feel to it, because
oh
houses in California, they have a very specific look, right? Like they
yeah.
all like you can tell you're in California. But there was this one street that just like really looked like you could have picked it up and put it on Long Island or you know what I mean? And so when in the fall, I would just like really liked walking down there because I was like, it might actually be fall. Like it might almost be Thanksgiving just on this street. You know what I mean?
just a small corner
Everywhere
of the
else is
world.
50 degrees and there's palm trees, but like this street makes me feel like there's a season.
There you go. I miss that part. Having some seasons every once in a while is good. And
Yeah.
are you one of those families that I guess Christmas music? This is probably the most important question of the year. I think. Do you listen to Christmas before Thanksgiving or after?
I Everything happens after Thanksgiving. I like to give each holiday
Thank
their
you.
due. It drives me nuts. Like some people were putting up like Christmas lights
Mhm.
before Thanksgiving. I was like, what? It's not
It's like,
stop.
what do you-
Like stop it. That's weird. And I know everybody's different and I do really love Christmas, but then there's something about the anticipation of like I don't get to do it yet. I don't get to do it yet. And then it's like, okay, we all had our turkey. Mary came to visit. That's our elf. We then hey, we're ready, So yeah, so we're definitely uh a Christmas music, Christmas decoration, Christmas tree after Thanksgiving. And ooh, are you a real or a fake Christmas tree person?
Right now, I'm a fake because I live in California, but I will eventually have a real one. So,
I people feel very strongly about I'm very much a real Christmas tree kind of person.
oh, they're
Yeah,
great.
when I lived in California, I did actually have a little mini fake one, but that's because I
Yeah.
always went home for Christmas, so I didn't want to
Mm,
have a tree rotting in my, apartment. But um yeah, I love the smell of a real Christmas tree.
mhm.
It's just there's something about it.
I think, yeah, I do like the holiday. I'm always a Thanksgiving fan, but I think the anticipation is part of the fun of it. And it's actually a good segue into our talk today because
It
waiting
is waiting,
is,
waiting for
this is like
things.
the holiday is usually a fun waiting.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is not so fun. And that's
Right, exactly.
waiting to see one of us in a veterinary clinic and
Yeah.
why it takes so long.
Why it takes so long. And two, sometimes once you've even had the initial like, okay, you've gotten in, we've kind of had a chat, now you're just
Mhm.
sitting there and you feel like 2 hours goes by. And there are definitely those days where it's like it's been 5 hours and like
Yes.
we're still working on this same case. And so I think it's a really good thing to kind of dissect a little bit of what happens, what are we doing on the back end of things that makes people have to wait. Because yeah, nobody likes to wait, and when you're worried about your own dog or cat, it makes that waiting even harder. Um,
Absolutely.
some people do it with grace, others with less grace.
That's a very nice way to put it. Grace and less grace. I couldn't agree more. And I think this. I'm actually excited for this podcast because I think there's quite a dichotomy in terms of the different types of waiting between our like your waiting and my
Yeah.
waiting.
Hmm.
Happens at different times throughout like an owner's visit, and yeah, I'm excited for it. It'd be kind of cool
Yeah.
to hear
Yeah.
more about it. So let's start it off.
Yeah.
And probably the first time people wait, I think people walk into a general practice with expectation like I have my appointment at this time.
Right.
When that doesn't happen, why?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. One, we do really try to ask people, especially the very first time that you're ever coming to see me, I have to go through all of your records. We really try to get those in before you have your first thing so that I have some time to look at it. But you have to remember, I have so many things going on in a day. It's pretty rare that like the day before I'll be able to review records for the
Yeah.
next day because I just don't
Or-
there isn't that time. Like there is just not that time where I'm just sitting
mm,
there like I have nothing to do, let me review records for tomorrow. Like that moment doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Um Sometimes it's like, "Oh, I have time. I might go to the bathroom." Like, you know what I mean? Like those are the things that I do when I have a free moment. Um and so I think number 1, the first wait for us,
Mhm.
whether it's a puppy or whether it's a first visit, especially if it's a complicated first visit or a second opinion, those are like I have to review your records. So
Mhm.
sometimes you're in there, we're getting everything straight and we're double checking what we were expecting of this first thing to be. And we have a chat with you and you say, "Oh, well, I was thinking it's X, Y, or Z." And it's like, "Okay, well, now let me go back and check." Because there's a lot of times where people, especially with complicated medical histories, they confuse things because they're like,
Oh,
"Oh, well,
all
we
the
did this
time.
last time or we didn't." And it's like, "Okay, that's accurate but not 100% accurate, but it's my job to be 100% accurate." So
Yes.
that to me is probably the big first weight, which I would imagine is a different sort of correlation to what you do because you also have to review medical records when you have them, right?
Yeah. So ours is more like the owner walks in and there's like a big sign that says, "Hey, you've got a 4 hour wait," and you're like, "Sweet." And that's kind of the first wait that owners will see in our clinic, and we try and get records in as quickly as we can, but it kind of just adds that wait time, unfortunately. And
Right.
it's funny because when you and I were in vet school, when we had cases of vet students, like usually we knew about them the night before, and they're like, "Yeah, research your cases ahead of time so you know what you're seeing in that
Right.
surgery case or that internal medicine case." That never happens. Or like I can honestly say never once since even probably my internship have I gone the night before and been like, "Yeah, I want to know how to do this procedure. I'm going to look up how to treat Cushing's disease better."
Yeah.
That's never happened. It's just funny how
I will
it's not
say that
happening.
I will often research after I've had the initial thing because part of it too that I've learned is just because somebody thinks that's what they're coming in for, once I see them, that may not even like I could have spent the entire night researching the most up-to-date stuff on Cushing's and they have diabetes. So
Yep.
like, you know what I mean? Like grain of salt. The one thing that I will say that I do ahead of time, which is
Mhm.
different probably for me and for you, I do prep surgically ahead of time. So like if
Yeah.
I have a surgery that I know I'm doing and maybe I've never done it before or
Mhm.
so I'm usually doing that with the owner of my clinic, my boss. Because generally he's done most things if I haven't done them. So I'm not
Mhm.
flying solo by any stretch if I don't have to.
Okay.
That would only happen in a very emergency sort of situation, like when I have to tap a heart and I call you and I panic and then you tell me how to do it.
And you
Um,
do a great job. It
and it
survives.
worked out great. But like, that I didn't expect. That I didn't look up
Yeah.
ahead of time. But like something like when I had to do an FHO, so I was
Mhm.
removing a hip like a hip joint basically is
Oh, nice.
FHO. Um
Yeah.
and so but I had never done one before. So I was like,
It's
well,
crazy.
okay, I'm going to research the approach. I'm going to research the surgery, but then I'm going to do it with my boss and he'll let me do what I can do. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But I'm not going to just make it up as I go along because there's some pretty complicated things in there.
Yeah.
Haven't done it before.
Absolutely. I'm still
Um
very impressed that you do that because God, I haven't done like actual surgery in years.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I do a lot of surgery, right? So like,
yeah,
so it's just, but I do a lot of things that are general practice surgery. So I do a lot of spays and neuters. I do a lot of mass removals. I do a lot of like small reconstructive sort of things, wound
mm.
care, like wound reconstruction, things like that, which I love. That's my favorite. If I could reconstruct a wound every day, that would like I would literally never do anything else. It would be great.
I'm
Um,
surprised you weren't a surgeon. I don't know why you weren't a surgeon.
I wasn't a surgeon because I had my first child in vet school and I
That's
wanted to spend
that's
time with her.
so Charlotte's the issue.
Yes, exactly. No, I mean, think about all the research and everything I did. Like I
Oh
did
yeah,
think for a while that I was going to do that, but it is so you we would have to have moved so many times and I
yeah.
was not it. I get to do a lot of surgery in general practice and I do like internal medicine. So I don't actually I kind of get the best of both worlds truthfully as a general doctor, so I'm okay with it. I do a fair bit of surgery. Um but and a lot nobody around here really likes wounds. I mean like I love them, so give them all to me. No problem. It's cool.
You know what?
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
Yeah.
But I think along with that's probably where the other wait time comes from is things don't always go as planned, and we don't have the
100%.
information ahead of time,
Yeah.
or trying to do a procedure that takes longer than we expect it to because it just does.
Right. Well, and that was actually what I was going to say. It's like a really good segue because so all the different surgeries we do, yeah,
Mm,
I expect that, a spay is going to take me X amount of time, a neuter is going to take, and it depends on the size of the dog, the whatever. So other things that can come up, like sometimes they have a little hernia or something that I have
mhm,
to go in and just close that I didn't have that extra time. Not that those take a long time, but even an extra 15 minutes puts me 15 minutes behind.
yeah,
I also am a slow surgeon. I'll be the first to say it. Everybody who works with me knows it. Because I am anal
meticulous,
very much. And
meticulous, meticulous.
I am I really am. I mean, like, I want to make sure that if my mother was sitting there, she would be like, "That closure looks very nice."
Good job, Dr. Dawson.
Right, exactly. Because to be fair, my mom's a plastic surgeon. That's why I say not it's like a mommy thing. She's a plastic surgeon, and I'm always like, what would my mom think of this closure? You know what I mean? So no, I do. I feel like it's really important that what goes out the door, people are like, oh wow, she took this much care on the inside of my dog, not just on the outside. And I do.
Oh, yeah,
I will check and double check, for bleeding. I just don't ever want anything I can avoid. I can't avoid every complication. That's just
yeah,
impossible. Every surgeon has complications. But sometimes bleeding occurs we don't expect. That's
mhm,
definitely happened to me during a spay where I'm like, oh, this is going to take me an extra 20 minutes that I was
yeah,
not expecting because I got to recheck everything. I got to make sure everything is stable before I close this dog up. So
absolutely.
somebody might be sitting in the exam room for 15, 20 minutes who we was just there for a vaccine, you know what I mean? But I have a surgery. I'm not going to do, like a half-ass job because I have to get it. Never.
Yeah.
That will just never happen. So
Well, that's
that's the
what
thing.
you want though from your veterinarian.
I hope
So,
so. And if not, then
but,
maybe I'm not meant to be your veterinarian. That's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but like for sure. But I think that, and I will say people are very understanding about that.
mhm,
When they're like, oh, she's still in surgery, she was supposed to be done, but it just took a little longer than we thought. Sometimes something extra pops up, even like if you have a mass removal. Like I've had one where we did this, I did a check maybe a couple of days before or whatever, and there's another mask that when we were shaving is like right there. I was like, we should probably just get both of them because this one
yeah,
feels just like that one, and let's just make sure it's nothing else. But then that adds a whole nother thing I have to close, a whole nother thing. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
sometimes that stuff's just not what you expected. I do tons of enucleations, and sometimes they just take longer to stop bleeding. You know what I mean? Things like you do those, right?
Oh yeah, all the time. That's probably the one thing I'm good at, I guess.
Yeah.
That's really that's
No,
all those.
you're good at very many things. I
Well, I
know.
mean, I'll say surgically, like just surgically, because like they happen all the time where a pug coughs too hard,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like little squeeze toys. Um, but I think even just like that process, even just getting them up to that point, like intubating your dog takes two people to do that.
Hmm.
Putting on anesthesia takes two people to do that oftentimes. Placing a catheter takes two, sometimes three people to do that.
Oh yeah.
And we only have so many people in the back, and a lot of times, like, the doctors have to help out with it too just because they need an extra set of hands.
Hmm.
I've had to literally sit on dogs sometimes because I'm just the biggest one in the room, And while we're trying to place a catheter, and like, we're gentle with them, but they just need a little bit more weight on them, and
Yeah, and
it's just
occasionally, like, your pre-meds, I mean, the reason you give them the pre-med is so that you can easily get that catheter in without them being
exactly.
stressed. But not everybody reads the book and not everybody responds that way.
And we don't do pre-meds that often in ER, to be honest with you, because we don't have time. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of times it's like we give them like, well, I mean, I guess we do. We give them like a pain injection first and a mild sedative, but we really get going pretty quickly. It's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you're close enough. We're gonna get started because we got 10 other things here that are just as critical, and here's what we gotta do. And
Well, and
but
especially if
yeah,
you have a dog that's seizing or something like that, and you have to get a catheter in a dog that's like literally moving. You know what I mean?
oh
And
yeah,
that's not easy.
oh yeah. And usually there's a third person like grabbing all the blood because they're like pulling blood as they're doing it. They're putting it in the tubes, and it's just,
Right.
if you have very good technicians, which I'm very blessed that I do, and I think you do as well. A lot of
Yes.
times you can do it with just a two-person job, but sometimes it takes three people. X-rays, it's always the one dog that you think is really great. And all of a sudden, they get on the table and they're like, "You're not holding me down." So
Yeah.
you need three people in there, or you use a bunch of sandbags, and just takes more time to do these things. Where I think people forget that when you walk in as a human, and I say, "Hey, I need you to take an X-ray. Put your hand here." You're just gonna do it. I don't have to
Yeah.
hold
You
you
just
down.
hold it there. You just take
Yeah,
a deep breath and hold your, like when you're getting chest x-rays. Like we try to catch them when they have a full, you know what I
exactly.
mean? Yeah.
That's a really good example. Like, we're literally trying to time their breathing because we can't tell them to hold their breath. We're like, "All right, 1, 2, 3, go."
Yeah, and a lot of
And
times they're panting, which then also makes our radiographs look very blurry,
mhm.
which is really hard then to be like, "Oh, are we worried about this?" You know what I mean? Or is that just
Exactly, we gotta
yeah,
retake something. A blood sample didn't work because 'cause we're doing an in-house lab, so we have to retake a sample. That happens all the time,
all the time. I
and
just had a cat that we were struggling to get blood on, and the it clotted, and then all the values were just off. And then I'm like, well,
mm,
I don't think this cat's got, immune mediated thrombocytopenia, so we need to redraw this. So let's go ahead and redraw. And then it was fine. It was perfectly normal. It was like, but
yeah,
we could have made a bad decision if we didn't look at the situation and go, this is clotted. We obviously know this is erroneous. We need to get the real values.
yeah. I think, it's just a lot more time goes and unfortunately, I'll say, like, aggressive pets or really nervous pets,
Oh yeah.
they take more time. They
A
just do.
lot more time.
Yeah, they
And
whether it's
especially I
sedating.
don't I don't know how it is with you because you're in a situation where you're like, this isn't you're emergently trying to figure out what's wrong with them. This isn't their home base, right? But I
Yeah,
can tell you as their home base, so we have 15-minute scheduled
box,
exams,
yeah.
right? So it's like 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. So I was like, okay, this is scheduled as a vaccine appointment. But I walk in the room and your dog charges me, starts barking at me, and even though you keep telling me that they've never bitten anybody, I'm going to listen to their body language. I'm
I'm not
gonna
listening
slow
to
down.
you.
Yeah. So, but it is true, right? So now this 15-minute appointment is at least going to take me 20-25 minutes because now the dog has to get comfortable with me. I have to
Yep,
figure out how I'm going to be able to do an exam. And then there's even those ones where the dog is just nervous and I don't know if they're going to like the charging barking you I know what they're going to do. But like the
yeah,
ones that just got give you that side eye where you're like you might come after me, and I'm not
yep.
sure if you're going to or not. But
Those are, like,
I
my least favorite
can
ones.
change the way that they feel about the vet if I can feed them, make it a less stressful thing, kind of, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I can help them. We have dogs that have been so fearful that over time have learned to be okay at the vet because we took the time with them. We didn't force them. We didn't hold them down. We didn't make it horrible. But if we don't do that takes a lot of extra time, like you said.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I wish we don't like like an angry dog. I still have to go slow with, but honestly, sometimes we have to put a muzzle on them and just say, "Hey, we have to get this done because I gotta find out where you're bleeding. I don't have time for you to be like my best friend in the next 10 minutes. It's
No, not if
I'm
you're
putting
gonna
a muzzle
bleed
on
out.
you." And yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, "Sorry, like good to get going." It's crazy because they have, and you feel horrible. Like that's probably the toughest part of the job sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
just being frank with people. W- You want to help them as much, and you feel bad. They're scared, but sometimes you're like, "I have to do this, otherwise, like, we're not gonna know what's going on with you."
We're not
And
gonna get an answer. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's probably I think that's some of the toughest job because I would love to be able to take a little more time with each patient, like, and sometimes I will, like, I have some time. The angry dog, I'll take them out of the room, we'll go for, like, a little walk and, make sure they're, like, and it's usually a dog that's, like, there for lameness or something like that,
Right,
something a
right.
little more
Yeah.
mild. but there's a mythology or mythology. Geez, I can't even say the right word. Fear-free
Like, yeah,
handling
methodology.
methodology. Thank you. Fear-free um, idea, essentially, that like you go a little slower with patients and you really focus on making the environment as healthy for them as possible. I think that's a great idea, and I'd like to incorporate more into ER.
Yeah.
Just I don't think ER is quite at the same point yet,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. It's not just ER. Some of it's just time. I mean, and hands and bodies, and you know what I mean? Like, there just aren't that many of us, and there's only so
Yeah,
much you can do. And sometimes really the hard part is the owner, because they're not being realistic about the way their dog is acting. And so some owners take offense to, like, oh, you want to muzzle him, and it's like, it's not a punishment, but I
yeah,
can't do an effective full exam. Like, there, yeah, I can give him a shot. Sure, I can get that done. No problem.
yeah,
But that's not, if you want that, then just go to the, like, vaccine clinic. You don't, you're here for me to give him a full exam, make
yeah.
sure that there's nothing going on. And if I'm afraid at every turn that he's going to turn around and bite me in the face, I'm going to be more tentative, and they're not going to get as good of an exam. Whereas if
Absolutely.
I can either put a muzzle on them, maybe have them come back on medicine, or just take time if I have it, then they're going to get a more thorough exam. And
Exactly.
sometimes that's really the hard part. Like owners take offense. Like, I had an owner the other day that was like, "Well, I didn't give him his trazodone because he's been doing so much better at home." And I was like, "Okay, but this isn't home. Like,
Yeah.
this is the height of fear inducing. I'm making him stay still. I'm poking him with a needle. I'm getting blood on him. I'm, like, squeezing his belly. I'm putting something in his ears. I'm picking up his, like, all the things I'm doing are totally ridiculous to a dog who
Yes.
doesn't understand why you're doing it.
Yep.
So you take a dog that's fearful, and then you just literally didn't give him the medicine. So now, maybe one day, if you bring him by all the time, let him come into the exam room, which I'm totally fine with, and give him treats, and let us all say hi to him and bring him back out, and on the different, make it so that this becomes part of his happy place. Great. It's not there today. So give
Yeah.
him his medicine.
You're like, so please help me help you.
No, but it's true.
And
But that took an extra 10-15 minutes. Then my next appointment is 10-15 minutes behind. So then the next one is 10-15 minutes behind. And then the next one I get is sick, which takes a lot longer than I've normally been allotted time for.
yes, because I think probably particularly for you, I feel like a lot of times owners come in with the expectation, my pet's healthy, but I have a question about
Yes.
this or a question
Yes.
about that. And I feel like I get that question every once, so probably less frequently as you do, though, because most of it's like, oh, my dog's on this diet. I'm like, your dog has other issues. We're not talking about this right now.
Right.
But I feel like I feel like they always come in with the intentions of like, yeah, my pet's healthy, but, and then that 15-minute slot that you made should have been like a 30-minute one. And
Yes.
now you're there.
Yes. More than
I'm like,
often, what happens is they ask, "Are you just coming in for vaccines? Do you have any concerns for the doctor?" No. Then they come in and there's like, whoop,
a list.
so they're having seizures now. They didn't have seizures before. And it's like, okay, this is not a vaccine appointment. It's just
Yeah.
not. And
Yeah.
the thing is like, I don't think they understand the impact that it then has on our day, because I don't want to ignore anything. I also don't want to make them come back. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I may have to. And so sometimes there are even times where I'll say, okay, why don't you leave them with me? Let me do a little bit more investigating, depending on what it is, if it's appropriate, not for seizures,
Yeah.
but like, but if it's appropriate, then, and then sometimes that gives me a little extra time to do the diagnostics, get things done, and then I can give them a call and say, okay, this is what we found, and this is what we think is going on, even though you came in thinking you were going to get vaccines and your cat's lost 5 pounds and isn't eating and is dehydrated. It's not a
You're like,
vaccine appointment.
so many things to discuss.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and the girls, like, my girls are pretty good at managing people's expectations, and sometimes, owners just keep talking. That I think is the other hard part, is like when I try to leave a room and I have my hand on the door, and I'm like, it's not that I don't want to keep talking to you. I do. I actually really enjoy a lot of our clients, and I love talking, and you know me, I can talk to a wall. I'll talk to anybody who'll listen. But sometimes I have a stack of patients that are waiting, and or what'll happen is three will come all at once. So,
Mm,
like, my first appointment came 5 minutes late, my second appointment came 10 minutes early, and then my appointment after that came an hour early, and all three came at the
yeah.
same time, and it's like,
Yeah,
being triple
great.
stat as a waitress, like too many things all at once. I just need a minute, you know? Um, and so I do think that communication is like such a huge part of it, right? Like people,
Yeah.
you have to say like, hey, you know what? We're running a few minutes behind. Like it's going to be a few minutes before she gets in here.
Yeah. I would love to put a sign up at the front counter that says, if you're wondering like why we're late, ask the person in front of you. Because honestly, it's probably
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
probably the reason. It's not usually us. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it can be repetitive. Like ask the patient in front of you because that's usually the reason why we're behind on things. It's they were talking too long, or they had more issues that they didn't tell us about, or their pet was not as amenable to some of the things we wanted to do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that's what slows us down. But I think also at the same time, I don't know where people get their expectations from that we're gonna be that much faster than human medicine.
I
Um,
Me neither. I mean, I think
it's so
about so
funny.
for you, urgent care. When have you ever gone to urgent care and not waited? Or like
Yeah,
an emergency clinic and not waited?
yeah. Even just like even just a normal appointment when I book ahead of time, it's not usually even that much. Like they'll close, but sometimes I'm waiting in a room for a lot longer. I'm like, which is fine. Like I'm okay with it. But I
Me
just
too.
but there's no one that like we do a pretty damn good job of like keeping up. Um,
Not only that,
but
where in human medicine do you get your results that day?
nowhere, literally
Never.
nowhere. So not even the same
I
week
get blood
sometimes.
work done multiple times a year,
Mhm.
and I nobody calls me. I get a letter in the mail like 3 weeks later. Like, yeah,
Right.
your kidney and liver look good.
I get
Cool.
the bill sometimes before I get the results.
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I didn't know the blood work was done. I was like, this
Yeah.
is cool.
I know.
So
I mean, I cannot think of a time where it's like, I mean, I'm sure there are some, different things. Like if you go and get like a rapid test, like a COVID test or a strep
yeah,
test or something like that. Like you'll get those, but then they're going to culture it. And
yeah.
I've had them because they usually check their work. I mean, always in human medicine because someone else is paying the bill, but not really. I mean, you are, but you're we'll get into that another day.
Yep.
But yeah, but like I can't even tell you. I mean, I don't even think they call me with the results unless they're positive. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like and even if there's like a little thing off, they don't really mention it. Like I know not to worry about too much.
Never, never. I mean, like I there are times where I'm like, can I have a copy of my blood work because I want to see it? But
Yeah.
like, and oh, now there's a new thing where a lot of times you'll get results straight from the lab before the doctor has even had a chance to look at it, which if that were me, that would make me crazy because people must be Googling stuff and calling all the time, being like,
Oh, it's
this was up
horrible.
and this was up. Why is this the, and that's the other thing too. I mean, sometimes just explaining, like some owners are like, why is this one red? And I'm like, don't worry about it. It doesn't
It's,
mean anything. I'd tell you if
it's
it
me.
did. I promise I'm not ignoring something that's important. But they want to
Exactly.
know every single thing. And that takes time.
Yeah, even the doctor I saw recently, my cholesterol was a little high. One of the values was a little high. I looked it up and I was like, "What, should I be concerned about this?" And I found out just because I ate beforehand. And that's the reason
Right.
why I just didn't think about it. But
It was postprandial as opposed to preprandial.
yes, yes. And I was like, but at first I was like, shit, do I have high cholesterol at the age of 35? I was like, this is a problem. Like, I need to figure this out. And
Right.
so I'm
Especially because
Googling.
like you are like you exercise, you're in such good shape.
You'd think, but I was like, maybe it means nothing. Genetics, it's a whole nature versus nurture. I'd love to have that conversation one of these days, but
Yeah.
it's just like maybe it's just my I don't know. That's part of my genes now, so I got to figure it out. So
Yeah.
even I was had a momentary Doctor Google episode,
Yeah.
and I went on,
Yeah.
and I'm fine. But I was like, my doctor didn't call me about it. It was just there. I was like, all right, well,
And
here
I
we
mean,
are.
I think you always like it's okay to ask the question, but at the same time, like it's the entitlement and the expectation of like you will call me. Somebody is going to call me today, and it's like I may if I maybe like, but
It's
maybe
all
not.
normal. You're getting an
You know what I
email.
mean? Yeah. So I do think that people sometimes their expectation of like how quickly things are going to go. And that's the other thing too is like sometimes people will come and like I made an appointment, or like they'll say like, "Oh, I made an appointment for 9:15, but I have to pick my kids up by 10." What?
It's a
Like
lot of time, guys.
I'm sorry, but like don't do that. You know what I mean? Or
Oh,
drop off or something like that. I had one person that they needed to leave, I want to say like maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes after their actual appointment time was, and I was like, What? Why would you do that? Like that's just not even like, have you been to a doctor before?
Yeah,
Or people who call in are like, you will get me in today. And it's like, it's 3 o'clock. Why didn't you call it 8 a.m.? We could have
yeah,
gotten you in today, but now we can't.
yeah, it's so funny, and I think the one where you mentioned where someone, like, schedules something afterwards, that happens all the time. It's like, yeah, like, they get there at 4 and they have to pick up their kids at 5, or
Yes. I'm like, no, no, no. Go
they're
get the
like
kids first. Come back. I mean,
yeah,
that's like
and they
literally
get
what
mad at
happened.
us the whole time. They're like, "How you" I was like, "You planned this." Like, or they're like, "I got a flight today, in an hour I gotta
Yes.
get to." I was like, Why would you do that? I get to the
I
airport early." It's
yes.
like,
I have had that too. Like, we're flying out today. Can you fix
"Oh,
this? And it's like,
no."
no, no, I cannot. No, no, I can't.
Yeah. So it's I think it's funny. I think so the wait times are everywhere, and it's that there's
Yeah, and I think just give people understand that we're all doing our best, and that if you have questions, it's okay to ask. What
yeah,
oh, what how long is the wait going to be? Is there, what should I expect? Like, I think that's fair, and I think,
yeah,
but I remember too, there's a team of people trying to help you, and
mhm,
sometimes just understanding that these things don't happen because you're not the only person too, right? So like
yeah,
sometimes I have 3 rooms at one time that are
yeah.
all waiting for, like, so one's
You.
getting x-rays, one's getting blood work, we're waiting for a urinalysis on the other one. So now I might get that first. Okay, I have to go in and explain to them what's going on. Okay, well, now they have more questions. So now I'm in that room for another minute. So it's going to be a few minutes before I can come in and explain stuff to you. And, and so I do, like, when I can call people and I'm like, you don't need to wait for this result, but it's not going to change what we do. It's going to
Yeah,
inform how where we go from here, but it's not going to change today. Go home, I'll call you. You know what I mean? Because then at
yeah.
least they are doing other stuff and they don't, you're not just sitting there like, But I do have some people that are like, oh, no, no, I'll wait. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be like an hour before I come back in here, but okay, no
Shoot.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
I'm
had
definitely
people walk in and want to be seen right then. It's like, well, she's in surgery, so she can't walk out of surgery to see your dog. And they're like, oh, I'll wait. And they'll just sit and just wait. It's like, okay,
bring a book,
but
something. I'm just
yeah, I
like,
mean, sure, that's fine, and as soon as I can do it, I'll do it. But yeah,
yeah,
it is. I think sometimes people forget that they're one of 20 people that we're seeing that day. So, you know,
yeah.
per
It's
doctor.
yeah, and I think just the golden rules, be nice. We're
Yes.
doing I promise we're not dicking around back there. We're literally working as fast as we can. I can say that with 100% confidence, like,
Yes.
for almost every veterinary clinic. It's
We
we're
try to
doing our
crack
best.
jokes and laugh a little in the back to keep our
Yeah,
sanity, but
yeah,
like it's happening while we're doing stuff the
yes.
entire
I'm
time.
almost always, like, I'm writing a record while I'm doing this, or it's
Yeah.
yeah. We're very good at multitasking, but,
Yeah.
it's a
Or
lot.
looking something up. That's the other thing too, is like I will often, if I'm not 100% sure that like what I'm doing is like standard of care, like I just want to always, I'm such a nervous Nelly, right? So I'm always like, let me just make sure, like, I know, I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing here. So I look a lot of stuff up just to like
Mm,
really make sure, because there's just so many things. And sometimes I'll even like consult with specialists, and I do a lot of that. So that takes a lot of time.
oh, yeah.
And yeah, I've had people like kind of get mad, like, well, have you heard back from Purdue? And it's like, no, I haven't, because they're doing it
Yeah,
for free. So we're gonna give them
right.
a couple of days. And we're not gonna get mad that they didn't get back to me yet with their free consult. And then we're gonna be
Exactly,
thankful when they do.
exactly, because it's free.
Because
So,
it's free. like it's a nice thing they're doing for us. So we're gonna give them a minute. You know what I
yes,
mean?
it's,
But yeah, managing expectations. I think it all comes down to communication, probably, of just what it is that's happening.
absolutely. I think, communication is a big thing, and hopefully we're gonna get better at that as an industry,
Yes.
uh, and really a society as well. Communication is good for all parts of your life,
It
relationships
it is, yeah.
and friends, all that kind of stuff. It's great. So
Exactly.
communicate.
And the PSA is, continue to treat the girls who answer the phone
Yes.
like humans. Be nice to them.
Yes.
It's not their fault. They're only the
Yeah.
messengers.
Yes.
And the technicians. They
Yes.
are the nurses, they are the caretakers that are taking care of your pets like this whole time. And they
Yes.
are our appendages. So be nice to them.
Yeah. Be nicer to them, if anything.
Yes.
Like, be nicer
You
than the
you
doctor.
wound them, you wound us. Please, please be nice to
You
them.
wound me.
It's true. I just can't. Like, I can't watch them be abused. It's very, very
No,
hard.
I
And so
100% agree. It's insulting, to be honest with you.
kindness,
So
patience, bring a book, Bring a tablet for your kids. We have
Yes.
crackers for your children. Always have animal crackers and crayons. So if you need those, please let us know. And I do understand, and we really try so hard, but it takes the whole team sometimes,
Yeah.
and we're just understaffed a lot of times too. So just be kind, especially when
Yeah.
everyone's sick. Everybody's sick right now, so we've been like
Oh, so
every
bad.
the wait times have been a lot higher this last couple of weeks because everybody's sick.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. So
So that's what the wait is about. If you have any questions, you can always email us at podcast@mybalto.com. And that's it. This was cathartic for me. I feel really good. Like, I don't, I hope people listen to this and are like, helpful information, but like, I feel a little lighter right now. How do you feel?
I'm actually ready to go practice right now. I feel kind of good. I agree. Like I'm like, I kind of want to go practice right now. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I feel much better now. Thanks, Sam.
Good. Yeah. Well, absolutely. Well, this has been the Pause It podcast. I hope it's as cathartic for you as it is for us. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next week. Or, yeah, next week. Hopefully, you're
Nice week.
every single week you're listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.